Yes, indeed. It is the audio mullet. You can't deny that. Look at our mullets. Look at them.
Imagine them.
Yes, imagine them in your head. No, actually look right at them. Look into the face of our mullets.
I see
This is audio mullet.
I see it, Mike. I see the mullet.
See, look at it. It's real.
I see it.
Embrace it. Come into the mullet.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yes, indeed. This is Audio Mullet. This is Michael J. Nelson, Doug TenNapel, Ethan Nicolle, and boy, oh boy, this is a special one because we have a guest.
Yeah,
this is a new thing.
It's our first guest. This is episode 11. So for our, everybody makes episode 11 very special. So we decided to celebrate and have our first guest. It's Kyle Mann, the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee. Kyle, say hello.
Yeah, we're big fans.
Kyle.
I'm not really sure how I got conned into this.
You'll regret it. Your career's over. As if it was already started on Babylon Bee. Now it's over.
Yeah, am I being detained? That's what I want to know.
We're in Kyle's garage currently.
Yeah. We are the shoals upon which careers break, Kyle. I'm sorry to tell you that, but we're glad to have you. And Ethan, tell us how do you know Kyle, and introduce him, and let's welcome him into the mullet.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, the Babylon Bee. Oh, hold on, my voice cracked. I'm starting over. The Babylon Bee. Still going through puberty. Oh, there's apparently.
Yeah. Oh, someone's running a Dremel tool,
Holy
which
cow.
is a very
That's a long buzzer
thing.
Hold on.
I think there's a dryer in here. We're in a garage. If I didn't mention
Kyle,
that.
do you use an electric Remington shaver from the 1970s? What was that?
See, Kyle's from publishing over. He does his little newspaper, his little Babylon Bee. He's not aware of the audio world.
That's right.
Master.
Yeah.
That's my door buzzer. That's when the guy brings the papers in, and I have to print them up and put the typing in there and turn it all up.
Kyle, do you hear that? What?
Yeah.
What? Bzzz. Kyle, anything wrong over the bzzz?
All right, let him finish their thing here.
Well, you guys missed out on the. There was a guy with a leaf blower.
Yeah,
and he went for a good couple hours, like walking around out front, and,
right next to the garage door here. Like, this might not work out.
I have much to say about leaf blowers. None of it good.
Let's not get Mike going.
Oh my God.
We'll never get on topic.
Wait, Ethan, isn't Kyle technically your boss?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
This is going to be Ethan on like his best behavior. This is going to be boring.
Yeah,
what can you say? You can't be like, my boss.
It's going again.
Oh my God.
What in the world?
I'm sorry.
This is the best show.
What kind of dryer is this?
I have never heard this before. They started doing this like yesterday, and I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on.
Best show in the world.
But I don't think so.
Maybe you need to turn the laundry over or something. It's like a microwave. All right. So, the Babylon Bee is it's the #1 website for Christian news satire. Hilarious website. You should check it out.
Of all the Christian news satire.
Yeah, of all the Christian news
being
satire out there.
It's like being a pro-life Democrat.
It is the #1, though.
It's the #1 pro-life Democrat in the world.
And so Kyle worked in construction, but then when the Babylon Bee started, he submitted headlines like the first week it started or something, like right when it started. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much, as far as I guess you could say how you became involved in the Babylon Bee.
No, I like it coming
like hearing it the second
from your
hand
face.
version. My understanding is that he pretty much started pitching headlines right off the bat, and he kind of just took over as like the main headline guy from the beginning, from what I can tell. I don't know.
Yeah,
that right?
That's pretty accurate.
It sounds like
it,
because Adam.
Yeah, so we do satire on everything from current events to church culture. Mm-hmm. Kind of more inside baseball sometimes, politics, worldviews, and it just quickly became popular because there wasn't a lot of comedy being done from a kind of more like we don't hate conservatives perspective.
Yeah, and the jokes from within inside the church too that like Christians make about themselves. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, and so it took off really big in that space, and I just wrote part-time, just emailing in headlines in the morning before I went into my job for a couple years, and then about a year ago I took over as the editor-in-chief. So that's what I do now. I write satire all day from my garage, and
yeah. And basically, the Babylon Bee got sold to a guy named Seth, who's actually a really cool guy. He's a huge fan of it, and so I mean, the Bee has pretty much been written by largely Kyle from the beginning, so it's not like it's changed that much. But the main thing that's changed is there's somebody with some money behind it now. So, so I got hired on recently as the second employee ever. So that's been my main gig, is I'm doing a large amount of the photoshopping and a good amount of writing. And me and Kyle hang out in his garage a few times a week and figure out ways to troll the internet for Jesus.
I love it.
Before we get to the meat of this discussion, I want to ask, so who's nipping at your heels to take in that huge market of making fun of inside baseball church stuff and then, not being unkind always to conservatives? Because that market has to be there has to be people just gobbling that up now going, oh man, we missed it. We missed it.
Yeah, I have seen a few attempts to kind of, ride in on the coattails. And
has there been any like knockoff sites?
When the site first launched, in that first 3 months, there were like a dozen knockoffs.
Oh, really? Wow, I was kidding. I didn't think
everything was Holy Herald or, I just saw another one the other day in our comments that someone was they were doing the Assyrian ant or something, like trying to, so
Mike Nelson and I were about to do the Babylon Register just this week. If we were going to launch.
We have an IPO on it going.
Yeah, we're going to slap a lawsuit, a cease and desist on you guys any day now.
I saw a couple of conservative sites trying to tap into established conservative sites trying to tap into satire and add satirical sections after we started, but they're not.
That's like inside
quality.
Joke. We always,
yeah. Well, here's what's cool about Babylon Bee. What I like about it is, so before it came along, there were some conservative humor. There was like Greg Gutfeld's Red Eye. But what was missing was the Christian side. Like I'm going like, where's my people making jokes? And there's always the clean comedians that don't quite have enough snark for my liking. They play it so safe. So you combined kind of the fun right-wing, satire humor and some spice with the Christianity is what made it so rare. And all these other news outlets, I think the reason why Babylon Bee is so big is no one else did it, first of all, as well as you guys did it. But also, it was just like, you're the only one on our side. When I go, who consistently lays down the humor? Who's the one that I just naturally retweet, even because I don't know you guys, or I didn't know you guys were on it back when I was retweeting it? It was always Babylon Bee. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like because there's that line between so clean it's super family friendly that your 3-year-old can listen to it, or there's just you feel dirty after you listen to it. Those are like the options in comedy. And Babylon Bee hit this sweet spot where, they're sarcastic. They take on things that you never see people joke about from another direction, like abortion. Like you never see somebody making jokes about Planned Parenthood.
And gay marriage and stuff. I'm going, who's going to lay down? So it always feels so safe when they dodge those real obvious things. And then Babylon Bee's weighing in and just having fun. And I really respect that.
And they're doing it in a non-mean way too. It's not like you don't feel like you ashamed of yourself or like. That's something I appreciate about him. And I think that as now that I've worked with Kyle, it's something he does weigh heavily. Am I crossing a line here? And I think we've crossed a couple, and that's what we want to talk about. So the actual main topic for this episode is appropriateness of humor. Do we draw lines in our jokes? What's appropriate to joke about, not joke about? Just all that kind of thing. Where is there a difference between how we joke with our friends on a porch smoking cigars and how we joke in something we publish? It's often said that nothing is sacred in comedy. That's what comedians like to say, but is that actually true?
Okay, so I'll weigh in with some contrast here.
Go on in there, yeah.
Because Mike is a Christian and Kyle is a Christian. So I want to know, Mike, do you ever do true like blue humor, F-word stuff. And Kyle, would you feel like you were free to do darker, more cutting humor as a Christian if you weren't on Babylon Bee? Like if you were a stand-up comic or if you were writing for Rifftrax, let's say.
Yeah, and context-wise, Mike is a quote-unquote secular humorist.
That's
and
right.
Kyle is a labeled Christian humorist. So that's the context.
Well, since I'll answer it in the order that it was received. I don't do, and I've never done, even before I was a Christian, I don't do and don't like what would be called blue humor or scatological humor at all. And that's just a personal thing. And then on principle, like when I became a Christian, it fit in just sort of naturally. Like I just don't do that anyway, so that doesn't appeal to me, and I'm not going to go there. But I do like dark humor, and I defend that from a Christian point of view, that the things that are dark, things about death or dying or those can be very, very funny, because I believe that I stand in a place of lightness, and so mocking those things makes me happy, and it makes me laugh, like that I'm in a place of freedom to do that. But for some reason, I've never, like the scatological, I don't really have a totally thought out principled stand against it, but there's the things that they just sort of touch your conscience, and you feel like God is asking you, just don't do that. You don't need to joke around with that. And so I don't, but I don't know that I'm fully aligning with things. I may go to hell anyway because of it.
Yeah.
I had a question for you, Mike, on that topic, is because you did start on TV, so you could kind of be like, well, the TV standards, you can't cross that line. Once you went to Rifftrax, it was your own thing. You are the boss, but you also, did you ever feel like you had to justify your choice to keep the humor pretty clean? Because then it was like wide open. It was on the internet. You could make any joke you wanted, and you're working with two other guys who I know probably would, I don't know, did they agree on keeping it cleaner, or you think they would take it less clean if they wanted to on Rifftrax, or is that secret information?
No, it's not secret information. I think they would probably a little bit more than me, but I think they agree on the principle that, look, we have this audience that was raised on this humor that was, I call it, it's not, when you say family friendly, that, has a certain connotation. I don't mean that, but it's, if grandma walks into the room or a 5-year-old walks into the room and hears a joke, it's not going to be, dear Lord, turn that off. What are you watching? It's the joke may go over their heads, or it may be, the adults can say to the kids, like, when you're older kind of thing, where it's not nothing sort of shocking. And so the swears for me, which we will swear and bleep, and some people go, why don't you I just want to hear you, man. I want to hear you say those words. It's like, why? you can hear them anywhere. We're doing it for it's for an effect, and I think that most people appreciate that we don't do it. So that's just my stance. Well, Kyle, what you must have, obviously I have thought about this a lot. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, obviously right from the beginning we labeled our satire as Christian, and I'm still not 100% sure what that means, because, like what makes a joke Christian or not, but obviously that just meant that we were focusing on church humor, and that means that a lot of our following is from that world. So we don't, we obviously, we don't cross a lot of lines in that way. If I wasn't, if someone asked me this recently, like, if you could do it all over again, would you label the site Christian? Because there's obviously some things you could do without that label, and I think we'd still do it that way, because, I don't know. I feel like we have a lot of freedom to make humor that comes from a really unique place in the Christian world. If it wasn't labeled Christian, I think it would. I'd probably make the same kinds of jokes. I agree. I don't think that adding, lots of colorful language or lots of gross jokes really adds to humor a lot. I watched it. There was some comedy I watched recently. I don't remember what it was, but that, had a bunch of F-bombs and it had a bunch of gross stuff in it. And it was a really funny movie, but like none of the funniness, none of the humor was related to those things. And I thought, if all of these things were out of there, it would still be just as funny. Like why are those? It almost feels like a handicap a lot of times for comedians to kind of when they rely on that stuff. So I don't know if that makes any sense. But
what about way back in the olden days? Remember the olden days? Remember the Old Testament? And
yes,
God, the holy being of love, describes these women, who like chase after men whose genitals were like those of horses and their emissions like those of donkeys. Can we go there?
That crosses a line.
The Holy One, God Himself.
I've tried to pitch headlines from that so many times, and Kyle he doesn't even.
That's why I'm the editor, dude. Yeah, I mean, there's social.
You were a Christian site. Are you holier than God now?
Yeah,
Kyle, wade in there,
asking.
Man.
Good question. I mean, there's social standards, obviously, that you have to kind of be aware of, and so yeah, I don't know. I think you have to understand the topic that you're talking about, how serious that topic is, or not, and then the humor has to kind of fit that in tone. I think, if we're going after abortion, we're going to be a lot more brutal,
Yeah.
And we've tried to do an abortion piece that's a little funnier, and it doesn't work because it's a really serious topic.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, it's a horrifying topic, and so even though we're trying to make a good point, if your tone comes off really light, then it doesn't really convey the seriousness.
Yeah, it was the example of that one. It was like the one that didn't work.
Oh, there was one really early on someone did that was on the Babylon Bee that was Planned Parenthood offering 2-for-1 abortions.
Yeah.
Or and it's fun. It's trying to make a point, but it's like
yeah.
I retweet the most brutal
lightly,
ones.
Yeah.
I retweet them. Automatic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're doing comedy as business, then you do have to take your audience into account. But I think what we're talking about more is like, just from a moral standpoint, is there right and wrong joking, and what are our boundaries in that? Like, even when you're just with your buddies in the back porch, do you have boundaries?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I've thought about this a lot because we are asked to be, let no foul words come out of your mouth, or there's commandments about that, and that raises the question: well, what is foul when you're with a bunch of foul guys?
Yeah, if they
what
get
is
it,
what is a
it's not
yeah?
foul
What
to
is
them,
appropriate
right?
for that? I feel like I give myself too much license on that when I'm just with the guys. That I take it too far, and but I don't, but it's a different standard than when you're doing something in public. But I don't know where that line is. And Doug, I think you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
Have you corrected your behavior? Is what I'm asking.
No, but I agree. I'm always at a point when I look at myself and say how foul I know I am. I'm never marveling at how good and holy the words are that fall out of my mouth. So if I was going to lean one way or another, I'd say I got to clean it up. But I do keep going back to kind of this brutality, this kind of brutal way of speaking in the Bible when he's describing good works as filthy rags. He doubles down, or a whitewashed sepulcher, or a den of vipers, these real kind of insulting things where I always feel like God is being really honest in his statements, and he's being extra insulting. He really lays it on when it's time to insult one, and I think it comes from his righteousness that he's able to do that. I don't have that righteousness, but I have the vitriol, and so that's the problem, is kind of the motive, not so much the words.
When you were at Comic-Con, Doug, I think it'd be interesting for you to bring up, you were on a panel about humor or something like that. Yeah. And you were arguing with these secular comedian or comedy writing comic artists. They were saying nothing is sacred, and you were challenging them on that. And I remember you talking. Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, I was throwing down on them. I just took what they found sacred, and because this is something I got from J.P. Moreland, one of the world's greatest Christian philosophers. He just said we always relativize someone else's values and make our own absolute. That's what he said his problem with relativism is. And everyone is always, so they're always secularists, let's say, they relativize what Christians take as sacred. And so I just relativize what they take as sacred. And I just said, well, maybe women get a lot of abortions because they're whores. And the whole room just went like, wah, ah, ah. Or I said, I have to sit here and listen to you guys say goddamn all day. And if I tell you Jesus is the only way to heaven and people who reject him are going to hell, and I say it like funny, like with glee, you guys would all just completely freak out. So I'm letting you guys feel how I feel when you relativize my values. Because they all go like, you guys just want to control women's bodies. And then I'll just go like, promiscuous women have all kinds of abortions and kill babies, especially black ones. And they're like, oh. So I just kind of expose that they have this giant tantrum. And then when I have my tantrum, they're going, oh, clutching your little precious church pearls. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like even your outrage is to be mocked. And so that's just something that I observe in comedy all the time, that everyone holds something sacred, and everyone trashes on what other people think is sacred, and they pretend like they're the only ones who have a thick skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see that. We see that on both sides all the time at the Babylon Bee, because we try to poke at both sides, and in one post it's like making fun of, Planned Parenthood or liberals or whatever. And you just get...
Which they hold sacred.
Yeah.
I mean, Planned Parenthood is sacred.
That's one of their core values.
Yeah.
And...
abortion is their state bird.
And, there was a bunch of, like, think pieces written early on when we started doing satire, like saying, our satire is not real satire because it's making fun of the wrong targets. And that's not what satire is for. So they have these intersectional systems set up. And if you're making fun of people that are in the wrong part of that system, you are, or they think you were making fun of those people, that's not satire. But then on the other side, we see, we do a piece about Donald Trump or something, and it's, and it's total meltdown of the people that were just calling the other people snowflakes. So you're right. I mean, we don't like our own side getting poked fun at, and we tend to melt down when that happens.
Yeah, and there's the other reason why I think I give Babylon Bee a pass when they make fun of the church is because I know that they're one of us. You know what I mean? They're the church. So it's different hearing Chris Rock use the N-word and some white comedian using it. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's like when you go after your own, it's done with some level of love and warmth at the bottom of it. And so as a conservative, I don't mind ripping on Trump all day and making fun of his piss-colored hair and everything that he is.
And that's what makes secular Hollywood humor about the church so terrible usually. You could tell that whoever wrote it has never been to church in their lives, Yeah,
humor that comes from a place of anger and spite. I guess there is sometimes it works, but it seems like it ages quicker, if anything. Yeah. If it's not just terrible off the bat. I feel far more saturated in leftist, even pro-abortion culture than any secularist is saturated in evangelicalism. Like they don't know how to give a nuanced slash at a worship leader like Babylon Bee does.
It's so funny that you talk about them being unfamiliar with culture. It's so common in movies to have someone go to church or interact with someone who is a person of faith or something. That happens all the time. And then it always strikes a sour note. My wife and I, watching any movie, we go like, "What? That's not a Catholic church. What are they doing?" Like it's always wrong.
Yeah.
And it just seems like such a simple thing to not get it wrong. Like you go and you check out. You have departments to make sure that the costume has the correct badge
just
on the
Google
shoulder.
it, man. I mean,
there's churches on every corner. You just go to one for one Sunday and see how it is.
Yeah, but they just spectacularly, they put their foot in the bucket every time they try to do church, and it's not that hard. Hire a Christian for $11 an hour, and they'll tell you, no, you wouldn't do that, idiot.
Yeah, I read when we were launching the Babylon Bee, I read there was an Onion piece The Onion is the secular knockoff of the Babylon Bee, if you haven't heard of it.
Sure.
And
I've never heard of it. I'll look it up.
there was a piece they did about religion, and I forget exactly what the issue was, but in the headline it said something about, it was clearly supposed to be about a Protestant church, and then in the body of the article it was like calling it mass. They called they called the priest a minister. It was like everything was wrong. It was just a mishmash of Hollywood stereotypes.
Easter worshipers.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I did like about the Onion is when they would take shots at their own. When they hit the left, it was I saw it as pretty brave. When they'd go after Obama or something, I thought it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had a couple articles that, like they had. What was the one about the people feeding the homeless, the Christians? It was a good one.
Brainwashed zealots feed homeless.
Feed homeless
or something.
Like yeah. The idea that everything they do is horrible, but they're just feeding the homeless people.
Yeah.
Kyle, in the name of fairness, do you have a responsibility to go after the church with as much teeth as you go after Planned Parenthood and these other kind of lefty, AOC and stuff? Do you have an obligation to have the same sharpness of teeth?
I think when we see damaging hypocrisy in the church, that's something that we'll go out with the same, level of ferocity.
Sure.
It's difficult because there's so much humor from the liberal perspective or from a secular perspective that even if I want to do something, like I want to push back a little, or I want to do something that's a little balancing, or we do something about our own, or we do something about conservatives. Even if I want to do that, it's like as soon as a news story breaks, there's 500,000 hot takes on it on Twitter already from the liberal perspective. But we have so much space to work with the other direction because not very many people are doing that. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely have no problem with hitting our own. But I'm not gonna make fun of. I mean, a lot of the values that Christians hold dear, because I believe they're true,
Right.
I'll make fun of hypocrisy when I see it, when I don't feel that we're being true to those values.
You're not going to rip on the historicity of the Bible.
Right.
Yeah, like one thing I always loved about the Babylon Bee was the conversations that you'd have with your other Christian friends, but nobody was saying it publicly, like, these televangelists who were clearly ripping people off. The Babylon Bee, and I think that's the thing, is like, because you're taking such a hard stance when you do that, but the Babylon Bee found this space where you can just satirize, and you just make the joke, and it's like it's one area where I realize the power of comedy, because they just make these the jokes like Benny Hinn. What was the Benny Hinn with the children's hospital? One of my favorites. Benny Hinn spends weekend healing children at local children's hospital for free. Like if he had that power, like you just imagine what he could actually do with it.
Yeah. Satire has this. Satire has this way of cutting through, because there's 100 think pieces on the internet. If you search for like what is the prosperity gospel, or you search for Benny Hinn, and there's thousands of articles attacking him. But then if you just read this brief headline that's like, Benny Hinn heals children, and it just cuts through all that. So I like that.
It's good. Speaking of televangelist ripoffs, Ethan, did you hear, and Mike, writers of VeggieTales, did you hear that VeggieTales, they're doing a new one?
I heard
it's coming out this fall, and it's coming out on TBN.
They're doing a deboot. The first deboot I've ever heard of. They're like going back to the old designs.
The sacred 90s CGI.
Yeah. They dusted out.
They did a reboot.
No, actually,
we're going back to our roots. I go, wait, but there's good production values on your computer animation. Yeah.
So are your episodes going to be non-canonical now in the Veggieverse?
That's the Gnostic.
Well, in that they're funny, yes.
Yeah, I think the VeggieTales that we worked on is like it's like the Ang Lee Hulk.
Yes, it's forgotten.
Just forgotten. Pretend like it never happened.
Wipe it off the map. Wipe it off the map.
So, Kyle, question for you, because this comes up to me, not a lot, but it's something I think about. Are there jokes or directions you've taken that you regret, like after the fact, when, I've taken punches at things before where then someone will write a letter and say, you shouldn't do this. And then upon reflection, I go, boy, I shouldn't. But it's still out there. You know what I mean? It's on tape or whatever. And I shouldn't have done that. Do you have those in your, your humor takes?
No.
No.
Next question. No, I'm just kidding.
He whispers to his lawyer, and his lawyer whispers in his ear, "No, you do not."
Show no weakness. Apologize for
We
me.
very rarely pulled an article. I think maybe 2 in the last 3 years that we've actually pulled. There's definitely ones that you work on and you feel like, oh, this is going to be a savage diss on that, or on whatever the target is, and then you look at it and it's like, oh yeah, that's actually not very funny at all, or or it's not, it doesn't make the point that we thought it was going to make. So yeah, I would say we stand by everything that's on the site. There's a couple of pieces we pull very early on. I think like a month or 2 into the Babylon Bee's life, Jan Crouch passed away, and she was one of the TBN.
The big wig.
She was
she had
the
like
queen.
this tiny little head underneath a giant pink wig.
Yeah, the pink wig lady. And I think
my friend's mom used to call her Queen God. Like you should call her the King and Queen God, because they're covered in jewelry and stuff, right?
Her face looked like this little golf ball with cotton candy stuck on it.
I remember growing up seeing the pink hair lady on. But yeah, she passed away, and we didn't really know what we were doing. Like, I think a lot of times if you've been in comedy for a while, you have this idea like, oh, someone just died, maybe I should wait. And we didn't quite have that. So we published I think it's still up. I don't think we ever pulled it, but it got a lot of pushback. We published a piece about, I don't even remember what it was. It was, I think it was like all the prosperity gospel preachers puzzled that, Jan Crouch could die or something. It was
like that.
It was something. It was trying to target the other prosperity preachers, but it came off like, hey, this lady just died. Maybe you should shut up for a bit. So we've gotten a little better at I just kind of see, did anybody die in this situation? If so, maybe. But we actually doubled our followers for doing it. So, because Fox News published a piece on it, and it was the whole,
outrage.
The outrage turned into something good for us. But we probably wouldn't have done it again, I think.
We should call
Ride that outrage. Kyle.
Ride the outrage.
Ride that outrage.
We should call it
Crazy
outrage.
like a fox.
Outrage.
Yeah, because if you get outrage going, then you can actually build your audience. So yeah, call it upraging.
Yeah.
So should we go on to our next topic yet? Are we there?
And I have one more question for all of you before we go to our next topic, if that's okay.
Get in there.
This is a question that it comes up a lot. When I write something and I feel that I'm clever, where I sort of chuckle to myself and I'm like, boy, oh boy, that's pretty smart stuff. I 2 minutes later, I go, oh God, I'm going to go back to that. And I realize that it's clever, but it's not funny, or it will not bring people joy. Does that make sense? Do you guys have that feeling when you write something where it's like, oh, it's barbed, it's going to hit its target? And then I always pull back on that and go, that's not a good instinct, I think, to want people to see my cleverness, because anybody could write that. Does that make sense? You guys must run up against that writing for the Babylon Bee, where you just go, is this really going to be joyous, or is this kind of just like stinging someone? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it kind of has to be weighed in context of how deserving is the target of of that barb. And yeah, you're right. I mean, like a year after the Babylon Bee launched, John Piper published a piece about satire, because people were asking him, like, do you read the Babylon Bee? And Pastor John Piper goes, he kind of says satire's fine, but he says his problem with writing satire is he writes it, his human tendency is to write it to think about how clever he is, and not to necessarily make a good point. So that's definitely something you have to think about, I think, while you're writing a piece. Like, am I writing this just so everyone will say, oh man, this guy's hilarious,
Right. Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the Babylon Bee is it does have a built-in kind of ego checker, because your name's not on it.
Nobody knows who I am.
Nobody knows who it is. It's funny if you look at Kyle's Twitter, he gets 3 likes on a tweet.
Yeah. Nobody knows who I am. So
his personal one, but then he's on Babylon Bee and it's like, getting retweeted by half the world.
It's kind of like a Batman situation, except I'm not a billionaire when I'm not Batman.
I don't know. That garage looks pretty swanky. We're looking at video.
This is an original.
I see the Batman.
It's an original from.
I like your construction work there
thank
too.
you.
That's some clean work. My standards are so low that if I merely make something that makes me look smart, I call that a win. That's how bad.
You like put a triple circle around that and go, yes, indeed.
Yeah, sometimes you got to take the single.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I just throw, because the way the Babylon Bee works, you just throw headlines on Facebook in a secret group. You just throw headlines at each other all day. And I have noticed the ones where I feel super clever almost always don't get any likes. So I realize something in my head is not match reality here. It's good to have that filter to get through. Like you have to get through your cohorts. Have to approve it.
Yeah.
Do they upvote it or something? Is there some kind of a formal system, or do you just kind of look at all the headlines?
It's Kyle.
Pick?
I'm the system. I am the system.
Just downvoting everything that you put on.
Ethan, man. Oh man. Ethan always wants somebody's head to get chopped off in a headline. So we'll all be kicking ideas around about, Joe Biden this and Joe Biden that, and he's like, Joe Biden's head chopped off, blood everywhere.
That's the axe.
Yeah, and it's like, come on, dude. So I've got to really rein him in.
And then
he writes like a 7-year-old.
Then Kyle will make a joke about children with cancer.
I did do that once. That's one of the pieces that didn't do so well.
His cleverest joke, and yet no payback. All right, well, we're moving on to our next department. Right. And so here, we'll leave a blank space here, guys. There, that was our music, and now here we go. All right, yes, what a fun department. This department is to talk about crap that morally makes no difference to us, and yet we're still annoyed about. And I'll kick it off with my example is I will judge a person by looking at his or her stereo system, but let's be honest, it's a he, and go, what kind of garbage is that? How does that idiot listen to that crap all day long? That thing is garbage. And then I'll realize, what the heck do I care? What kind of a... But I'll get moral outrage about it, even though it's not a moral issue. So that's what I'm throwing open to you guys. What are yours, where you judge people on things when you, upon consideration, you go, why is there any reason I care whether this person is watching Everybody Loves Raymond, which I think sucks, Like, who cares?
Oh, man.
Yeah, this is like turning chocolate versus vanilla into a moral statement, but it's about 90% of what I say is about what is trash. Like Transformers is terrible. G.I. Joe is terrible. Mike, you've ripped on Star Wars. This brand of cigar is supreme above all others. And I think I'm just used to kind of everything being binary. It's like it's either great or it sucks, and it's great if I like it, and it sucks if I don't.
And this, I think the internet is amplifying this, right? It's like, just had a grilled cheese sandwich at so-and-so grill. Greatest grilled cheese sandwich the world has ever seen. Like, calm down, man. There's been many hundreds of grilled cheese,
Yeah, In-N-Out's terrible. Tommy Burger is the way to go. That's my other thing. Is like, I'm all about Tommy Burger, and everyone's all about In-N-Out. And I'm like, I like In-N-Out. It's not terrible, but Tommy Burger, why aren't you loving that enough?
Ethan, Kyle, what are your, die in a fire things where you realize upon reflection, maybe I shouldn't get so worked up about this?
I was big on like you get involved in these wars between these giant corporations who don't care about you, and like these brands that, you're like, I am loyal to this brand. And it's like, yeah, they don't even know who you are. So I growing up, that was a big, I grew up kind of in the Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo era,
Yeah, Earthworm Jim, baby.
I have the Game Boy game. I think I still have it on my Game Boy. But I actually had a friend in grade school that we stopped talking to each other over this issue. He was Sega.
That's a good use of your.
Yeah,
He was Sega. You were SNES.
I was a Nintendo fan. I'm still a Nintendo fanboy. So I still, I go to someone's house and they just have the PlayStation, and I do the silently judge. I silently judge them.
If they have the Genesis, you're like Mike looking at someone's stereo
Yes.
system, going, "You missed out.
Exactly.
What are you doing?"
I once did I think I had insomnia or something, so I stayed awake back when I had a Twitter account. And I think I was attacking Celery because I had a piece of celery and I was like, you know what? Celery's not good. That was my opinion at the time. And I went on and just made up as many jokes about celery as I could. And the outrage was over the top. It was as though I had insulted Islam. It was, people were like, how dare you? Have you ever done celery this way? I'm like, yeah, I did it. It was the worst thing I ever had. And people were, it's like, they just did not, it does not qualify
my
as a
6-year-old
joke.
had
but
cancer and was cured by celery. Thank you, Mike.
it was that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm clearly joking, but I wonder how far I can take this. The binary internet is going off the rails here when celery is causing them to melt down.
That's the nature
is
of
it all
Twitter
justified,
too.
guys?
What was that?
Go ahead.
Is it at all justified, guys, when say Gillette invites politics into their neutral razor?
Oh, I hate that. I'm not going to live my life that way. I'm not going to, even when Gillette invites it, I guess it's sort of like if, when an actor just gets too vocal, like, look, I can ignore, I'll go see a Woody Allen movie, maybe. But now, I don't know. It's once that thing sort of distracts you from the art itself or the face shaving itself. Like now, every time I pick up my Gillette, I got to think about this guy hates me. The guy who makes this razor hates me and my values. Like, all right,
but it's a great shave.
I never thought about it before, but now I have to think about it. You ass! Why didn't you leave it alone?
For mine, I guess I don't know. I have a lot of stupid things. One thing that for me, I think, is that I have to constantly remind myself not to get such righteous indignation about is the music at church.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from you, man. You're on fire. You're turning over tables in the church,
in my head,
driving them out with a whip.
More in my head, but most worship music drives me crazy, but it's more just taste wise. This annoys me, but I have to stand back and go these people really enjoy this here, and just let them enjoy it, and whatever, man. Fine. If we were actually playing music that I liked, it'd probably be, I don't even know what it'd be.
No, hardly anyone would raise their hands and sway
exactly
at your music.
Though I do still take
just to get a picture of it. What is it that you? Which
just
kind
the
of
modern
music do you have?
just the. I think what happened because I was a worship leader. And then I was in a rock band, and then I kind of realized that there's all the same tricks that you can use to get an audience going. So I got a little jaded about it, and so I started to get a little judgy, and then I backed off, and I started to go there's a taste thing in me. Taste wise, I just don't like it, but I need to let people have it, they enjoy it, and I just need to back off and let people enjoy it.
But Ethan, when you go to a Ricky Skaggs concert, are you just standing there, or do you clap and jump up and down? Are you just as stoic at Ricky Skaggs?
I avoid most physical movement. Except for there has been the rare concert where you'll see me do a jig.
Okay, but I'm just saying. So when those millennials are jumping up and down and swaying,
millennials at a Ricky Skaggs concert.
No, I'm saying at church. No,
okay,
I'm talking about the crappy church music, not Ricky Skaggs. But when they're responding at that level, it's me at a football game or me at a They Might Be Giants concert. I've never blown up like that in a church.
Yeah, no, it's.
I
have no problem with that. Sorry.
I will go to weddings, and my wife will ask me to dance, and I will oblige her because it's a wedding or whatever, and I will dance. And then other people will come over and say, "Why you go dance with her again? She's dancing with another guy, you're a cousin, whatever." I'm like, I don't understand what would ever cause a person to move his body in that way. So I'm not I don't. So I'm with.
Yeah,
I'm with Ethan. Like, what are you doing?
I'm
What
a
would ever
dance all
cause
night
you to-
guy. If I can
Yeah, why
get
don't-
Angie
why
out
don't
on
you
the
just-
dance floor, we dance all night.
No, you cross your hands behind your back, maybe, or put them at your sides politely, and then you stand there for 6 hours. I don't understand why you would do any of this.
Yes, nod your head to the beat,
but-
maybe. You want.
Yeah, maybe that's a little ostentatious, but okay, I'll allow it. But watch
You
yourself.
can't look
counselor.
like you're really enjoying that music.
No. Kyle, if you're comfortable saying it, what kind of church environment are you in that you can, sort of write this satire from?
Yeah, I'm kind of at a. I grew up in a large Baptist church, mega church status. 3,000, 4,000 people. Very modern, worshipy. We sang all the "Jesus is my boyfriend" songs, and I kind of did it full circle. Then I kind of went more conservative for college, conservative Christian school. Then ended up kind of in more conservative, reformed-ish church circles, and now I'm kind of at more casual, like Bible church, independent Bible church that. It's a decent mix of modern stuff and old school hymns, and I like hymns the best, but I don't mind the modern stuff so much anymore. I got really judgmental about it at one point. Like you'd hear someone singing a song that was written in the past 50 years, and you'd start to judge them, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Do the people that you're churching with, do they ever suspect, like, oh, wait a minute, I just got Babylon B'd. I'm the guy.
Oh yeah, I got in trouble last week. I did a piece about men who wear pink, like dress shirts for Easter. Like they're obviously their wives forced them to wear it or whatever.
That's true. I always wonder when I see a man wearing
That's
a
what
pink
it is.
shirt, button down. I'm going, you bought
So
that?
I was inspired by the pastor because the pastor showed up in this pink, get up, and so he pulled me aside the next Sunday. In a funny way, he's like, I want to know, is this about me? And so yeah, I'll get called out.
Did you demur or did you
confess? Confession is good
that's
for the
good
soul.
of you. That's a good Christian. Yep.
Just every week when he wears something different, just write an article on it the next week, and just go. And when he keeps confronting, going like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. You're just paranoid. He'll wear like leopard skin coat. You'll be like, oh, leopard skin, the new woke pastor.
In frustration, he comes nude to the pulpit at one point. You see, like, are you going to comment on this? Huh?
Got an
what do you
article,
got to say
Kyle?
about this?
Got an article? How about now? I'm dressed like a prophet.
I'm not comfortable.
I'm
You were
naked.
talking about the line that you can't cross.
It's made Kyle very uncomfortable.
That's the line.
Doug, I feel like you have more specific things that you hate that we need to drill down on, because you don't like that I don't like Star Wars or the Marvel
We're actually
universe.
evenly divided on
I'm
that.
coming around.
Because
Yeah,
I
I'm
never
coming
make
around
any
to you
kind
on
of
Star
moral
Wars.
judgments. Like, so you want to watch crappy garbage? That's fine. I don't care. If you want to fill your mind with that trash, that's
me and
that's
Kyle
fine.
have like the same
Okay.
divide too. It's fun.
Okay, I watched.
Wait, does it work out the same? Who's on the Marvel side? Who's against?
I'm just
Or the
more like,
Star Wars
not
side?
another Marvel joke, not another Star Wars. And Kyle's always making me. He's probably right. A lot of them do well.
They always
Kyle, did you see
do well.
Kyle, did you watch End Wars?
Endgame. I did.
Endgame? Sorry.
combined.
Same thing. They're all the same.
He's a fan, ladies and gentlemen. He's a fan.
Infinity Game. I went to see Endgame, and I loved it. My first thought coming out is I have to call Mike and tell him how much I loved it.
That's great.
Oh my God, you are a moral.
It is-
You are a moral degenerate. for
Oh,
liking
Mike, it
that.
is so good. I was just smiling. I was laughing. I was loving it. Oh, it was such a good movie.
And it's like 4.5 hours long, right? So they keep you in the theater and just pummel you with this garbage.
It was a 3P movie. It was 3 hours, and I had to get up 3 times.
It's 3 hours?
3-hour runtime, just the movie. So count trailers and everything else. Yeah, it was a life commitment.
You can't tell your story in less than 3 hours?
Mike, it's so complicated. The universe is so well developed, and it's such a vast history of vintage comic heroes that to give them the proper amount of air, you got to give them 3 hours.
Irving Thalberg said, "My ass has 75 minutes. That's it. I don't got 3 hours."
I mean, I did go to the bathroom a lot, but it was really good. And so I'll expound on that. And that was one of my thoughts was I feel bad that Mike's going to miss this great experience. Cause like you feel something about something and you want someone else to feel it. Like when I bite into a Tommy burger, it's like, I really want Mike to experience this, but I know you'll take the bun off.
Kyle, the Marvel Universe, or is this DC or Marvel?
Yeah,
what
it's
is
DC.
That? It's some sort. Okay.
No,
where do you
trash.
stand? Where do you stand on this?
DC's trash. DC's high carb. We don't do
Yeah,
that.
no, Endgame was very, very good. There was a couple of set pieces I thought were kind of dumb, but overall, I mean, this is a cinematic achievement, 20-something movies and wrap them all up in one. I thought it was great.
Babylon Bee.
I think it'll be great, Doug, if we go and see it together. When it's on, I'll go down to Nashville, I'll watch it with you, and then I'll be sitting there bored, giving you the 10,000-yard stare, and you'll go, no, just wait for like another hour and 20 minutes, and then it gets good, and then that comes, and I'll go, I didn't like that. You go, just hang on one more hour, and then it really ramps up.
Yeah, then, Mike, the thing that really got me about that movie is like, okay, how long is it going to take for me to get on board with this thing? First scene I was on board. First scene's done, I'm in. Second scene, I'm in deeper. Like I kept noticing, I'm going, this writing is really something. And so I'd imagine you'd be there at that 1,000-mile stare. Then you'd take me home to your little precious giant Death Star looking stereo system and say, Doug, let's crack some Wagner open. And then I'd give you the 1,000-mile stare, checking my clock. Okay, third movement on Der Ring or whatever.
And then I would picture that you would then bring me to your dog's dish and you would start eating the dog food and going from the first bite, I'm in, man. This stuff is good. You got to get in here.
Hey.
This is really good.
Hey, as a stunt,
brown gravy dripping down your lips.
As a stunt to freak out my friends in high school, I did eat the hard Purina dog food. I pulled out a nugget and I'd chomp on it and go, dog food.
It's not bad, is it?
It tastes
it's kind
like
of
corn.
like it's a cross between like liver and cereal.
It was kind of corn meets barely meat, as I recall. It's been a long time, but I did the stunt enough to do that was the Doug TenNapel move.
Honestly, the puree dog food is you're brave if you'll eat that. That's the stuff that it's like the shape of the can.
And Kyle,
comes out.
Yeah.
And Kyle, how dumb are DC people, are JLA people who are into like Batman, Superman? How dumb are they?
So dumb. Hey, you can see my giant Batman sign behind me.
This is an audio podcast, by the way.
Yeah, but there is a big Batman sign behind me.
That's the but that's
that
the
is the Tim Burton
Batman. Which that's the
Oh,
only good
Batman.
one.
I feel like Wonder Woman was really good. Aquaman was acceptable.
Yeah.
I liked Man of Steel. The thing is that they're so inconsistent. Like you watch, you can't go to a DC movie and know that you're going to see a solid, flick, because it's just going to be different every time. It's so uneven.
Yeah, there's some real bad smells going
We're
on.
not becoming a
in those
pop
movies.
culture podcast, are we? I'm getting scared here.
And here's my 30-minute review
I'm with
of
you.
Aquaman.
But it is true that our tastes, we hold them very dear, whether if it's food or stereo equipment or burgers or whatever. I think we're such normally, because reality is objective, that I think we start throwing objectivism on things that really are subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I think that's the whole ball game. I mean, you see it in, any kind of food taste or whatever, like a different culture eating something. Like, who cares what they eat? It may taste gross to you, but why are you attributing moral things to it? And I think that that's true at all levels of pop culture. It's all garbage. I would say, until you start talking about Bach's Mass and B minor, I mean, you may not like it, but objectively, it's a pretty good work of art. But I can see if someone just like, I don't like listening to it, it doesn't offend me in any way, and I can still like Bach's Mass and B minor and go about my day. But there is this new thing on the internet and the outrage and the binariness of you're in the other camp then if you don't like it, and you should be killed and destroyed, and you're non-human. Like, we're extrapolating.
There's no worse example than sports teams. I mean, to me, that is the ultimate coin flip. Is sports teams.
Oh, Doug, wait! You don't like sports? This is a news flash. Why don't you talk about?
Yeah, let's go off on sports again. Let me tell you about sports. All wife beating goes up during the commercial breaks.
Oh, that is not true. That has been go look up Snopes.
There's that line again.
Oh, Snopes. Snopes, the harbinger of truth. Look at Mike quoting Snopes. I didn't realize we were going to bring the Bible into this.
Oh, look up whatever you want. It's not true.
Snopes studies show. So sports teams, famous for and the things that people say about the sports teams. They go like, my guys won't let me down. My guys. And they virtue signal with their T-shirt and with their how long they've been a fan. Like, I remember when they were losing every year and I was still hanging with them. My guys won't let me down. Well, those guys, first of all, half are from other countries. They don't know who you are. When they switch to another team, they'll all do the love-hate thing over the sports team. It's like flip a coin. And they're getting so
at least
animated.
Marvel fans don't do anything like that. Marvel fans are very calm, and they don't wear any of the paraphernalia of the...
I don't. Unlike Kyle, I have no Marvel product in sight or on my shelves. So I'm not like... Kyle's got a Batman thing hanging over his head back there. His whitewashed sepulcher.
Captain Marvel's
Hanging
right
on the
next to it,
back.
though. You just can't see it. But
Oh, dude.
All right, I feel like, you know, our last two shows have been Doug going off on sports for the last 4 minutes of our show, and I feel like we should give a little bit more to Kyle to thank him for being on, because we are coming to the end of our episode, to thank him and give him some last words and have him talk about sports or Marvel or DC or whatever he wants to talk about. Kyle, this is your moment to shine.
yeah, have you guys heard that Seinfeld bit on rooting for sports teams? He talks about how, you know, you were a fan. If you're a fan for 10 years, everyone you liked 10 years ago is off the team. He's like, so really, you're just rooting for the clothes, you know? So I think his punchline is like, you're cheering for laundry. You know, that's his big punchline. But yeah, I mean, I think anything we find what it is that we integrate it into our identity. You know, it becomes an identity issue. You know, we like to take a corporate brand and make it part of who I am, you know. And if we can't make that separation, then you're right, we're going to turn it into an objective thing when it's really more of an opinion or preference thing.
I always say to people who argue with me about, well, when I used to be on social media about something stupid, like, hey, I have a religion, man. Go get one. Stop being so forceful about something that doesn't matter. And, you know, take up something that does matter.
Yeah, all this trivial stuff like sports and the death penalty and stuff just doesn't make. I'm lost in all this. I don't get it. What about it? Would be really, you know, it'd be really cool. I just thought this up right now. You guys at Babylon Bee should do a podcast.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Trademark Doug TenNapel. So when you guys are way bigger than Audio Mullet, will you remember to mention us so we can get some?
Yeah, we need some subs.
I was thinking, you know, no guarantees, but you guys might get the retweet when this episode is shared.
Oh yeah, we never know. We've never had like a big retweet.
You get the big retweet.
I'm going to be on for. I'm promoting my bear book, and I've somehow managed to get on. I know that this is a bad word among you guys, but Jonah Goldberg's podcast. I'm gonna be on
that's
Eric Metaxas' show, and I'm gonna be on. I don't know if you guys know
Metaxas.
Michael Malice, but also Michael Malice. He's a Fox guy. So yeah, it's pretty sweet. So I'll mention Audio Mullet on those. Who knows? Maybe we'll get someone to listen.
I'm shocked that you didn't come to Audio Mullet first to promote your bear book. This is.
I made a book about bears. If you guys want to check it out.
Yeah, if Jonah Goldberg says that eschaton quote or whatever he always says, just smack him. And if he goes, just slap him upside the head. That guy, I listen to his his Remnant podcast just to hate him.
Oh.
I agree with a lot of what he says, but man.
Yep. Okay. Doug just broke the podcast, so I'm going to end it now. This has been a very good episode. Kyle, thank you so much. A pleasure to meet you over the podcast airwaves.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Am I still being detained, or?
I guess I'll release you. We got more articles to put out today, I think.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you got to get to look at him chewing and doing the coyote, chewing his arm off, trying to get
he's
off.
Trying not to look at his phone.
Yeah, I got
to check the numbers.
We need so many column inches by the end of the night, Kyle. Get out there.
I'm trying.
The boys in the hallway.
Yeah, there's some worship leaders that haven't been tagged yet by you. Go do your job. Hey, great work. I have nothing but fandom for you. I love and respect the Babylon Bee. Love your work. You guys are doing great.
Thank you.
Same here. I echo the same thoughts. Keep up the good work, and we thank you. And we'll see you again here on another Audio Mullet. This is Kyle, Mike, Doug, and what is it? Ethan? Yeah, I think so. That's us. We are the Audio Mullet. Thank you so much, everyone.
Audio Mullet, a mullet of audio smashing you in the